Well, staying in the region, Israeli forces have carried out major raids across the occupied West Bank, killing at least 5 Palestinians. Dozens of military vehicles were confronted by Palestinian fighters in Jenin, and all 5 hospitals there were surrounded. More than 200 Palestinians have been killed in raids in the occupied West Bank since October the 7th. Now, families of those taken hostage by Hamas are marching to Jerusalem demanding the return of their loved ones. It's estimated more than 200 people remain captive in Gaza. Families are urging the Israeli government to do more to negotiate their release. US President Joe Biden said he was hopeful that an agreement would be reached soon. The protest march set out Tuesday from Tel Aviv and will culminate on Saturday with a mass protest at the Prime Minister's office in Jerusalem.
It is clear beyond doubt that the time is working not in our favor, and we have to get the hostages back to Israel as soon as possible. We can't wait. Right now, we know there's a deal on the table, and it's being delayed because we're trying to get a better deal. There is no time. There's no time for the children. There's no time for the infants, for the injured, for the chronically ill, for the elderly. There is no time. If there is a deal, they must be back home now, immediately, even if not everybody comes back. This is as crucial as winning this war. In fact, there will be no victory in this war if these people are not back here, to the last of them, here between us, not only bringing our lives back to normal and making us able to go back to living our lives, but getting this country out of this spiral of darkness and despair and vengeance, giving us some hope that we can start rebuilding our future here.
We are asking the people of Israel to come to Jerusalem on Saturday night Eve and to join us in the protest, be with us and escort us to bring them back home.
Now, for more on the conflict, let's cross live to Tel Aviv and speak with the RISE special correspondent, Carl Bostic. Good day, warm welcome to the program. Let's get straight into it. And can you bring us up to date on Israel's war against Hamas in Gaza that's now lasted 6 weeks? And is there a timeline, for how long do you think this could continue for?
That's right. Good afternoon. Well, you've already, shown some of the reports of what's happening on the ground in Gaza, put things in a broader perspective. This blackout, it means that the main telecoms providers in Gaza, they are completely wiped out. There's no fuel to run them. That means no phone service, no mobile phone service, no internet connection. So it's a blackout for which there's no communication. That actually enables the Israeli military to carry out operations where no one really can see exactly what's going on. And for that matter, it's a handicap for Hamas to fight back because they cannot coordinate. What we do know, and you've also kind of indicated that, they made some progress in the Al-Shifa compound. They uncovered a tunnel shaft, which supports their claim that the main hospital in Gaza was being used to also conceal an underground network of tunnels that Hamas was using to store weapons for its leadership to live in, and presumably to hold hostages. And also when they arrived on the premises 2 days ago, this is now day 3 on this Shifa compound, they found 2 bodies of hostages. One of them, a 19-year-old corporal, they had only released a video on Monday where she was basically asking for help. And then a video of her body was shown the next day. So again, to put in perspective, the Shifa complex is important because it's not just one building, it's 22 acres of a complex of buildings. And Israel is saying that because a hospital was being used, especially Shifa, and schools and mosques was being used by Hamas to store weapons for the leadership to hide and to also take hostages, it's justifiably a military target. And that's why you have the high number of casualties that you have. And that's why the world is so outraged, because of all this collateral damage that cannot be sustained or justified unless Israel can show more conclusive evidence. So far, they have not done so. They have not really gone into the tunnel because they're worried it may be booby trapped. So we don't really know if that, web of tunnels does exist, even though the U.S. intelligence is saying it exists. But in terms of a timeline, Israel's war cabinet today, they've actually unanimously approved expanding their operation into the south, into South Gaza. They've dropped leaflets warning people to evacuate. And that's pretty ironic because this is a 25-mile strip of land, 2.3 million people. You know, this is a strip, a city, the area, a quarter of the size of Abuja, for example. Now, about 80% are in the south. So if they wage the campaign in the south, you know, where can they go to further? There's nowhere else to flee to. There's no escape. So this is really problematic right there. And again, this would just raise more consternation internationally if they see another barrage of campaigns and bombardments in the south. And at the same time, in Israel itself, you've got people displaced from the north and the south, more than 250,000 people. And the economy is also contracting. Livelihoods are on a standstill. So this is not good for any side, but especially in Gaza. It's completely excessive, you could say.
Absolutely. And of course, we know that the people who are hurt the most are civilians, especially the children in this case. After 6 weeks of war, can you give us an update on the humanitarian crisis in Gaza?
Well, you know, every day it just seems like another horror story. It's like hell on earth, to be honest. I mean, the UN is updating almost on a daily basis just where things stand. They're now saying the WFP, World Food Program, is saying of Gaza's 2.3 million residents, all 2.3 million residents are in need of food. All 2.3 million are at risk of starvation, keeping in mind that half the population is children. The bakeries are closed. The markets are closed. There's no refrigeration. So they're basically, you know, eating canned food and raw vegetables because they don't have fuel or gas to cook the foods. The shelters that the UN runs in Gaza, housing about 700,000 to 900,000 displaced people from the north, they're overcrowded, and you now have a risk of infectious diseases spreading. And now the UN is saying that 70% of Gaza's 2.3 million people no longer have access to clean water. This creates spread of infectious diseases like gastroenteritis, for example. The UN set up a hotline. They received more than 40,000 calls from people saying they have no food at all. Reports of basically children at these shelters. They're begging not for a cup of water, just for a sip of water and a slice of bread. That's how dire it is. It's really more than a catastrophe. It's near apocalyptic.
Absolutely. And the images are so difficult to look at, Carl. But is this war affecting Palestinian support for Hamas at all?
Well, strangely enough, it shows you just how divided this society is. And one more humanitarian aspect I just wanted to mention, even for the aid trucks that do come into Gaza, they can't be met and picked up because there's no fuel to meet those trucks. And the aid trucks that do come in, they only meet 10% of the need on the ground in Gaza. And that's fueling the resentment that you have in places like the West Bank. A poll came out from the university there, Birzeit. 84% of those polled in the West Bank said they actually supported what took place October 7th, those actions by Hamas, those actions of atrocities by Hamas, 84%. A majority of them actually supporting Hamas overall. So this is going to make it even more difficult for Israel to dislodge and uproot Hamas in Gaza, because even if Gaza is dismantled and destroyed, there will still be a strong sentiment in favor of them. And that's why there's so much concern about what happens the day after Hamas is removed from power. If you already have, you know, a vast majority of the population still supporting what they're doing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for keeping us up to date with the developments as they happen. Arise special correspondent Carl Bostic, thank you so much.